I just like to, smoke a joint every now and then.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
You dick!
Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com.
Hey, did you guys know in 1970, Hugh Hefner gave a guy by the name of Keith Stroup $5,000, and he started the National Organizations for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And throughout Hugh Hefner's life, he was a big supporter of NORML. And from what I understand, he used to give $100,000 a year, which really helped propel NORML to be just like this, really, to be the number one advocacy group around.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So, and considering they were such advocates, I think now, considering the fury of all the cannabis debate going on, I think time for Playboy to step back up. And they should do a special collector's issue and have Willie Nelson do a centerfold.
Ooh,
what do you say?
Is Playboy still published?
Yeah. Yes, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to see Willie Nelson in.
And then
I haven't seen it around in a long time.
No, I haven't seen it either.
You have laptops; you don't need it anymore. And then you put in a rolling paper the size of the centerfold, like Cheech and Chong did in the Bamboo album. You know?
Oh yeah, man, that'd be cool.
And then you get loud. Remember how John Lennon and Yoko Ono did that bed protest, the bed in?
Yeah.
Remember in Amsterdam, they sat in bed naked for a week and protested war. Well, do that. But get like 3 king size beds, get like 20 celebrities in there. Partially nude. Protest.
And maybe we can do it at the Playboy mansion and just hang out there for a month.
I'm in.
Anyway.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
And I'm Andrew McCready.
And we are so glad you're with us. Let's get right to it, shall we? Today, we're going to talk about cannabis becoming America's next wellness obsession. An article about microdosing and the surprising popularity of low THC products. We're going to give you an update on the weed shortage in Canada, which I understand has become critical. But first, Andrew has some news. Now that Massachusetts has legalized adult use, apparently, Representative Joe Kennedy, who complained about it or campaigned against it, has flipped. What can you tell us about that, Andrew?
Well, today is a big day in cannabis reform. Massachusetts started selling cannabis for adult use today in 2 dispensaries. In one of the dispensaries in Northampton, the mayor, David Narkowitz, what a great name for first guy, was the first person to buy cannabis.
Narkowitz?
Okay,
that's got to be a joke.
I'm sorry, I just saw that. I'm sorry, I didn't put that together till I just. Anyways, he was the first person. So he bought a candy bar and he's going to put it on display as a little piece of history. He's big time pro cannabis reform. So
Andrew, did you say they only have 2 dispensaries opening?
Yeah, for recreational open. Yeah.
Wow.
So they opened up today and there were hundreds of people in line to get. And I saw it on TV. And one thing I did notice as they panned the line, I saw a lot of gray hair.
Really? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
But leading up to this, when Massachusetts was voting on adult use, Representative Joe Kennedy III came out against the bill. He did not think cannabis should have been made legal recreationally. Now, Joe Kennedy is a quite impressive guy, I think. And
he's a hardcore liberal, too. It's surprising.
Oh, he's a Kennedy.
But he's real anti-drug, isn't he?
2 main concerns are mental health and substance abuse, which are, heavy things to tackle. And he's really
he's serious
proactive
about it.
And more power to the guy. But now he's come out and said, listen, I'm flipping. So many states have now legalized either medical or some form of cannabis use, and the floodgates have opened. Now, if we really want to control this and help people make it safe and do minimal harm to our citizens, we need to legalize it federally. So here's a guy who was an outspoken advocate against it, has now flipped. Now, I think a lot of people who felt the way he did might learn something from his new opinion.
It reminds me of the senator, Cory Gardner from Colorado, was against legalization in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And once it was legalized, he said, hey, this is what my constituents want. I'm going to support it.
Well, I think that's right. I was going to say I think Kennedy is making a political calculation, and I don't think in a bad way, that he doesn't want to go against his state. You know, the state of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, should I say, has voted to legalize for adult use, and you know, he represents them. He doesn't want to be at odds with his own voters, and I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I don't think that's particularly dishonest.
Yeah, and I think
I think he's probably legitimately flipped.
I think he's saying, you know, it's already been determined. It's going to be legal, so let's do it right. Let's regulate it the right way. Let's make sure we keep it away from kids. Let's do, you know, and I think that's admirable.
Package it correctly. Make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
Make sure it's healthy. Because God knows
And
what you're
by
getting.
God, we'll tax the hell out of it.
Okay.
That was kind of a feeble attempt at an impression.
He writes a great opinion piece that I found on statnews.com. And he concludes by saying, legalization is not a cure-all. Risks remain and regulatory vigilance is required. Criminal justice inequities will persist until adequate state-level reforms are sought nationwide. But legalization would guide states choosing to move forward with a strong, clear national standard meant to ensure that all Americans are protected and fully equal.
I can't argue with it. Well, that's good news. I'm glad the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has joined the ranks. And if you want to see more states join the ranks of the legalized, we sure hope that you'll help us get the word out. And you can do that by checking us out at VoteProPot.com.
Or you can send us an email at VoteProPot@gmail.com.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Just search for Vote Pro Pot.
And if you like this episode, please take a moment, and if you want to put us on pause for a minute and share it with somebody else, we don't mind.
We'll wait.
We'll wait for you. Yeah, it's real important. We want you to know the facts. We want as many people as possible to know the facts and make decisions based on real information. Here is an article from High Times about, the headline is Cannabis is America's Next Wellness Obsession. And apparently it's becoming very clear to a lot of people that cannabis has a legitimate place in the realm of wellness, keeping people healthy. The 2018 midterms made Michigan the 10th U.S. state to legalize recreational marijuana. With this vote, the state enters a cannabis market thriving in states like Colorado, Washington, and most notably California, which has surpassed the UK as the fifth largest economy in the world. A lot of money there.
Wow.
People are quitting their jobs and feverishly moving across the country for the, quote, green rush, end quote. It's literal reefer madness. To some, the legalization of pot was a formality, licensed to smoke up without that nagging cop phobia to ruin the high. And, that's what we've been saying for a while now. People are going to use cannabis, smoke weed anyway. They're already doing it. Anybody who wants to can do it. The only question is, are we going to keep incarcerating people? Are we going to keep making the drug cartels rich? And if so, why?
Right.
But now we've gone from legalize it to normalize it. The wellness industry is projected to bring $75 billion in by 2030, and most don't plan on riding the winds of bong rips to get there. While the current market skews younger and male, the growth is toward an older, more female crowd. That's interesting. The older one, Andrew, you noticed in the Massachusetts lines at the dispensary, but a more female crowd is interesting. Mm-hmm. The industry isn't targeting the college kid hotboxing his dorm room every night. He's going to smoke no matter what. It's the 45-year-old yoga instructor and her accountant husband that they're after. And once again, Andrew, you've nailed it. I think people are discovering the health benefits of, ointments, topicals, tinctures, not just the flower,
Right.
It's not your father's or grandfather's pot anymore.
In addition to health and beauty, I think cannabis has really become more acceptable in pop culture. I mean, you can't watch a sitcom nowadays without someone, with some kind of reference to reefer. Even what was this show? The conservative guy, comedian.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen. Even Tim Allen, who is a conservative, on his show, his father's character owned a dispensary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. You're talking about the comedies and the sitcom. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
Andrew, it's funny how you say the conservative comedian, and we both know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, there's only one.
That guy, yeah.
There's only one on TV, that's for sure.
I don't know about that.
Well, talking about health and cannabis kind of segues into an article I've got here. This is from herb.co. Is microdosing the future of cannabis? Dispensaries are selling more low THC products and strains than ever before. This is by Michelle Janikin out of New York. And this has become surprising to a lot of the sellers, from what I understand, that low THC products are very popular. And it has to do, I kind of, again, segue from what Phil was talking about with health products and yoga and so forth. A lot of these people are really into the microdosing. And I personally, that's really my guilty pleasure with cannabis is microdosing. I'm almost 60 years old and I'm not really into sitting around getting baked. That's not my thing. But I do like to microdose. And what it says here is, as weed is legalized and becomes more mainstream, cannabis products seem to be getting weaker rather than stronger. This trend towards microdosing and low THC products is, in part, to appeal to a wider audience of new and inexperienced users. But it's also helping veteran stoners stay medicated and productive. The bottom line is the productive word there. You can low dose, microdose cannabis and still be productive, still do things, not be a veg. So I think that's why it's very popular, more so than what the analysts and predictors of cannabis sales thought would be the case. Microdosing is the act of taking very small amounts of drugs, in this case, anywhere between 1 and 10 milligrams of THC, most commonly 2.5 to 5 milligrams. This can be done by taking a single hit from a vape pen or eating a low-dose edible for a precise serving. So that's kind of interesting, I find, and it really is interesting. It's the way I enjoy cannabis, is in really small doses. That's how I enjoy it. So, what about you guys?
Well, as you know, I use it in a vape pen. As well as in a topical. I use it purely for pain relief. Mm-hmm. And it's I think a 78% CBD, which is very low THC.
Yeah.
And one good blast from the vape pen is plenty. And
you're not stoned, are you, Phil? You're just...
No, I'm not stoned. I don't want to be stoned.
No, I get it.
I don't want to get high. I want, the chronic pain to ease so that I can sleep. And it helps me sleep. It relieves the pain, and I'm still a very high functioning individual.
Well, that's the key for me. Is we're all three of us. We're busy guys. We got a lot of different, a lot of different things going on in our lives, and I can function. I can function with a little piece of an edible or a hit off a vape pen to just kind of relieve the anxiety. So many people in our society now are on these anti-anxiety medications, Valium and Xanax and lorazepam and all the rest of them. And
Right.
I don't want to get in that cycle, man. I don't want to take that stuff. I'm not interested in that. It's not where I want to go. But cannabis does that for me in a very low dose, and it's not addictive, like we've talked about. I don't have to worry about getting hooked or ever being able to get off this stuff and having withdrawals and all that. So, interesting article, I think. It surprised me a little
and I
bit.
think for those times and moments when someone, does want to sit and catch a buzz, watch the game, go to a party,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
that's cool too.
They can switch to a different strain.
Yeah.
You know, and
or do a few
enjoy
bong
it a
hits.
different
That's a
way.
totally different thing. But
That's right. They enjoy it, and smoking weed, smoking the flower is as much a social thing as, beers.
absolutely.
And,
or scotch.
and
or,
you want to do that. That's a different strain again. So really depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah, one last short paragraph here. These low-dose products aren't getting people couch lock high, but are still helping them unwind. They often make people feel lighter, more prone to the giggles and munchies without a crazy, paranoid head high that a dose of over 20 milligrams of THC could give a new user. So I think one of the big reasons that these low THC products are selling so big is because the obvious reason is because cannabis sales are new, and a lot of people are trying it for the first time, or maybe for the first time in 20 or 30 years. So they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go in there and buy this shit that's everybody's telling me how strong weed is now. So they're attracted to the low THC stuff.
Let me make my computer refresh here.
Jay was doing Popeye.
Okay, I got an article from Forbes magazine. Cannabis goes global while U.S. falls behind. This week, Mexico's Congress is expected to vote on a bill legalizing medical and recreational cannabis use across the country. The president-elect has signaled his willingness to legalize the drug during his campaign, and then last week, the Mexican Supreme Court ruled that anti-cannabis laws were unconstitutional. So now the Mexican Congress is getting together and they are writing up legislation to legalize. Now, in addition to Mexico, now Canada and Uruguay have already legalized nationally. And in addition to that, 30 countries as well as 33 United American states, including Australia, Germany, and Israel, have legalized some type of cannabis use. And those numbers are growing. A dozen or more countries have already started their path towards full legalization of the plant. Spain and the Netherlands allow recreational use in designated cafes. Jamaica and the Czech Republic have a booming cannabis tourism industry.
Man, we're getting left in the dust, aren't we, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Now,
I'm
is
getting to that.
there anything in that article about large populations running amok, people becoming violent, kids crashing cars into walls? I mean, is there anything in the article about those phenomena?
No.
No, all right. Maybe because
Just
they're not
checking.
happening. No, okay. Just reality check.
Well, and last year after the French President Macron, he came through one of his campaign promises and eliminated mandatory prison sentencing for minor cannabis possession, which is a big deal.
Sacre bleu.
Colombia and Portugal have a strong grassroots legalization movement and growing government support. All these countries are often, you'll see a lot of these countries on the most likely to legalize next list. Medical use in the UK is growing. Countries have joined the UK as far as other European countries like Malta, Luxembourg, Greece, Denmark. They all have some form of medical use or decriminalized small possessions. Thailand, which used to have the most strict drug laws around, are now opening up for a decriminalization and medical. South Korea is already in the process of legalizing some medical products. Anyway, by 2025, the cannabis industry is going to be $146 billion worldwide. Now, in the meantime, America has still illegal nationally. So
Really, I mean, how much longer can criminalization last in the U.S.?
Well, what happens is now that since our banks aren't open up, now in Canada, there's 3 cannabis companies that are worth multiple billions. One of them, I think, is even over $10 billion they're worth. Mm-hmm. And they're just stacking up money up there just to acquire any cannabis company that's doing well.
Canopy Growth, just waiting for the U.S. market to open up federally, and they're going to come in and just start buying companies.
See, but in the meantime, other countries are setting up trade deals. They're setting up distribution routes. I mean, they're going full steam because America was always the country that stood up, going, cannabis is bad. You got to make it illegal. And all these countries, which happened in 1960, when America went to the United Nations and put their foot down. That's why cannabis is illegal all over the world, because America did it. And now America doesn't give a shit what everyone else is doing. So all these other countries are going, hell yeah, let's open up. And we're getting left in the dust.
Let's make the assumption that the United States is going to be federally legal within the next couple of years. Let's make that assumption. What does that mean in terms of us catching up with Mexico and Canada and all the other countries?
Well, what that means is that banks will open up and you'll be able to make a serious investment in these companies. Right now, is with it being illegal nationally, no banks wants to touch the money.
Right.
No big investors are going to put any substantial amount of money into it. But once it does flip, we have not only the ability to develop ancillary industries. We're going to develop and not only the strains and research on cannabis, not only medically but industrially and recreationally. We'll catch up eventually.
That's kind of my question. How long would it? I
think it'll happen quickly. I think Andrew, you're right. Once America nationally does flip, and this is a process. I think it's going to be, it's going to reach a point where, a certain number of states kind of tip the balance, and I think it'll happen within the next 3 to 4 years.
I do too.
We'll catch up quickly because America has the financial, infrastructure. We have the supply chain infrastructure, a very robust one, the most in the world. And
in the largest economy. That's really the bottom line.
Something, guys, that's true. That's always been true. But right now, there's a lot of big cannabis deals going on internationally, and none of them are coming to the United States for financing.
Right.
And we're being kept out of these deals. Now, granted, we might legalize and come back, but there's going to be some deals that are going to be set, and they're set. We're out. Yeah. We're sitting on our hands.
That's true. Yeah. No, we're getting boxed out.
And there's some things that's going to take us a long
for
way.
The near term,
it's going to take us years, if not decades, to if we ever catch up.
Well, I think about what happened. At the beginning of World War II, when Germany had built up this huge military machine, Japan built up a huge military machine. America was kind of sitting on its hands, but once America got into it, we came up to speed immediately, and we're overwhelming because we just have.
We have
America,
the leverage because we have such a huge economy.
Well, we have the infrastructure. We have the banks. We have the supply chains. We have the money.
Just the sheer size of our economy.
Yeah, the size of our economy. But what about the market? America is only 4% of the population of the earth. If these companies outside the United States are selling to the other 96% of the earth,
all those countries you mentioned put together don't equal our economy.
Well, yes, they do. Well, if you include China and India.
No, we're not talking about China and India, though, are we? We're talking about
India.
We're talking about Canada. We're talking about Canada, Mexico, Great Britain, the UK.
And you said it yourself, Andrew. Where is the best quality weed being grown?
Yeah,
domestically.
We'll catch up. I really feel we'll catch up.
I'm just concerned because I think because we've been sitting on our hands.
Well, it's frustrating. You're right.
It's really going to and also how many? I think 12 companies, American companies, have moved to Israel. A bunch of companies have invested in companies in Canada.
Oh
There's American chains. There's chains of dispensaries in America that are opening up in Canada now.
Well, I think America will treat it as an industry like every other industry, and it won't be long before we're dominating. Frankly, Andrew, I think you're concerned because in your heart you love America. Well, let's talk about a little progress here on the home front. And this is from king5.com. The Washington, and we're talking about Washington State, the Washington Liquor and Cannabis Board says it has issued the state's first license to grow marijuana for research. VoteProPot Research in Seattle says it will be growing cannabis to conduct basic research on some of the plant's lesser-known compounds. Chief Executive Jessica Tanani said, Verta intends to breed cannabis plants to emphasize compounds that currently exist only at low levels, so that those compounds can then be studied for potential therapeutic uses. In addition to meeting the same requirements as other marijuana businesses, applications for research licenses are subject to an independent scientific review. So they're not just going to give this away to everybody. Marijuana remains illegal under federal law, as we discussed, which has long hindered researchers' access to the plant. Some states that have legalized marijuana, including Washington, Oregon, and Colorado, are offering cannabis research licenses as a way to improve access within the states. So,
how can
another
they do
baby
that?
step.
It's Schedule 1. How can they do that? It's illegal.
Well, I think the state of Washington can issue whatever licenses.
But it's Schedule 1 federally. I mean, that's taking a big risk.
What this company's doing is all they're really doing is just extracting separating the different compounds in the plant.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really any medical research being done here. You know what I mean? The research being done is how can we separate the different compounds of the plant, because there's hundreds of compounds.
Yeah.
And the thing about using cannabis as a medicine, you can take a bud off a marijuana plant and use that, and it works really well to help someone helps them with a symptom of some kind of disease. You can take a clone from that exact plant where you got that bud and grow it somewhere else, and it's not going to have the same effect because the conditions of the grow. You know what I mean?
No kidding. I didn't know that.
It's always going to be a little different. Everything's going to be a little different. So if you want to get a consistent product like that, what you need to do is separate all the compounds and then just then build formulas of certain amounts of each of the compounds.
Right. And what they're talking about are the less known cannabinoids.
Right.
So that we don't really know much about as far as their medicinal use.
Right.
So I think, Andrew, you're right. It's developing the strains and the means for extracting and separating these lesser known compounds.
Right.
So it's not for medical research.
Right. Because eventually what medical cannabis companies will be doing, they'll have, maybe 5 strains, maybe 50 strains, and they'll grow them and they'll extract all the different compounds they need, and they'll put together these oils, these cannabis oils that have
different combinations,
each oil, you'll have different combinations and different types, but every time you have a type, it's going to have
it'll
the
be
exact
consistent
same consistency. Yes, exactly.
I see.
And that therefore you can do greater studies on it, and therefore you can count on it. Doctors know what they're prescribing.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, I think it's a great step. I think it's the research is what's going to make a big difference in all of this, in my opinion.
It's the most sensible, realistic, smartest thing to do right now. And I think when it comes to cannabis,
the great use of the resources.
Breaking down all the elements of the plant, figuring it out.
Be interesting to see what the federal government, how they react to that, to a state.
Well, they can say, where the real research we're doing here is we're making machines that extract. That's the experiment. We're not really experimenting on the weed.
Yeah,
we're experimenting on the machine to extract the weed. So, that's research. Wait, it's still cannabis research, but I don't know.
I can see a conflict there between the hardcore
but I can see a
schedule.
Court case going, we're not doing medical research. We're not doing cannabis research. We're doing extraction machine research.
Yeah. There's nothing illegal about that, as far as I know. And I think that the devil's going to be in the details. It's how the law is written,
right?
How the licenses are issued. So,
and also, I think, do you think maybe the federal government or or even state government for that matter, it's going to be a little less likely to start pushing around cannabis businessmen that are billionaires and have like hundreds of millions of dollars and, backing them up. They're not going to sit there and be bullied, So I think a lot of federal guys going, there's some young DA's going to go in there and some seasoned businessman is going to fucking eat him for lunch.
Here's an article from worldnewsdailyreport.com. Apparently, Hell's Angels want to sue the government for $2 billion in revenue that they've lost because of legalization of marijuana.
In Canada.
The Hell's Angels in Canada. The Hell's Angels chapter of the province of Quebec has filed a lawsuit against the Attorney General of Quebec seeking more than $2 billion. And I'm not sure how the math adds up here, and we'll talk about that in a second. $2 billion in potential loss of revenue that legalization of marijuana will cost the biker organization. The illegal production and consumption of non-medical cannabis was worth about $4 million last year in Quebec alone, according to Statistics Canada analysis of the underground economy.
I'm sure that wasn't 400.
Well, see, they say 400 million last year. So maybe that's a high year, pardon the expression, but they're talking about a total of $2 billion over the next decade, according to acknowledged Hell's Angels lawyer Brandon Tuggs. He says, I've been selling weed since I'm 12 years old, and this is Gino Willette, a 56-year-old Hell's Angels member who's been a member for the past 36 years. He says, do you think I'm going to want to work at Walmart or McDonald's at minimum wage? I don't think so. Yeah. Here's the thing, Gino. Tough shit.
So
you were engaged in illegal activity, which is now legal. So,
is this for real? Is this for real?
Yeah, and this apparently is for real. I don't see the Onion logo anywhere on here. I mean, I'm almost tempted
my God,
to
these
look
guys are
for
selling weed on the black market. I mean, they're essentially criminals, and they're going to sue the government because the government made it legal. They don't have income anymore. Am I getting this? Is that what this is about? The fuck?
Yeah. Well, maybe Canada will legalize beating the shit out of people and put the Hell's Angels out of business once and for all.
Well, also, wait a minute. They claimed they did $400 million last year in province of Quebec, which is believable. Now they say over the next 10 years, they're going to lose. They want $200 billion for lost income over the next 10 years. But if you do the math, $400 million a year is $4 billion in the next 10 years.
Right.
Well, maybe they're accounting for taxes.
If you're a Hell's Angel, math ain't your thing, man.
Right. So really, if you're
I'm going to get my ass kicked.
So if you do $400 million a year, in the last 10 years, you did $4 billion in sales. It seems to me you owe some back taxes there, guys.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It sounds like Onion to me, brother. It's
World News and Daily Report.
Well, see, now, I'm not familiar with worldnewsdailyreport.com, but is that a legit organization? I guess it is.
Is it April Fool's Day? What is today? No,
this is a thing.
All right.
This may not be about, trying to sue the government. This is them making a point. Now they're going to come back and go, okay, listen, you really sort of took our wins out of our sails, and we're not going to sue you for $2 billion. We'll settle. You just give us some licenses. You give us a chance to get into the legal. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, there you go.
Because these Hells Angels, they're not idiots, guys.
Yeah. Here's another quote from Hells Angels member Lucky 3 Leclerc. He says, now, Lucky 3 was apparently condemned in 1977 for triple homicide. He says, quote, who's going to want to give me a job? I've got tattoos all over my body and all over my face. Well, gee, Lucky 3, who the fuck's fault is that? Who told you to put a tat on your face?
On your fucking face.
I don't know, man.
Wow. I don't know. Okay. I wouldn't hire the guy because he had tattoos on his face. I wouldn't hire him because he was convicted of a triple murder.
I think the triple homicide is what would put me off.
That might. I wouldn't warm him up to me at all. I got an article here that talks about a law that bans gun sales to medical marijuana users. Apparently, there was a gentleman down in Alabama, got his medical card, and he went in to buy a gun, and they asked him if he used marijuana. He said, I have a medical marijuana card. And they said, sorry, we can't sell it to you. So, yep.
Why is that?
Apparently, in a memo in 2011, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, their assistant director, Arthur Herbert, wrote that federal law prohibits anyone who is an unlawful user or an addict of any controlled substance from shipping, transporting, receiving, or possessing firearms or ammunition. Federal law also bans anyone from selling or providing guns or ammunition to the people who they believe are using the drugs. So gun shop owners just say, I think that guy was that cat is high. You don't have to sell a gun.
Wow. Okay. That's
wow.
interesting.
Well, that's the federal government for you.
Apparently, now it's the federal law that states that, but there's been no cases of anyone
being turned down for.
Well, I think this guy was turned down. Another guy in Pennsylvania got turned down. According to the memo, medical marijuana users must answer yes to question 11E on the ATF's Form 4473, the ATS firearm transaction record, which purchasing a firearm you must fill out. The question is, are you an unlawful user of or an addict to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other type of controlled substance? Now, apparently, when you go to buy a gun, you fill out these forms and it goes to the Justice Department. Now, when you also go to get your medical marijuana card, the state medical marijuana board has that information, but they don't share it with the federal government. And the federal government really doesn't share their gun stats with the state. There's no place where these two, all this information intersects, where they can start pulling people's gun permits.
Right. Gotcha.
Well, I mean, this puts us in kind of a quandary here because on the one hand, there are folks who are kind of clamoring for more stringent gun control law, and this is definitely that, while at the same time, people are, advocating for less stringent cannabis law. And, this is where I suppose the two have intersected in the past. I think the problem is that marijuana gets lumped in with dangerous drugs and creates a volatile mix.
And it will continue to be until Schedule 1 is changed.
I think that's probably the key.
Well, the thing about this that gets me is that, I can understand you don't want people that are, impaired, with guns, I guess is the reasoning behind this. But if you're going to do that, I mean, it seems to me alcohol and firearms don't mix. And so if you're going to crack down, I don't know, maybe is this one of the things we should do? Maybe if you start getting too many DWIs, will you pull your gun permit as well?
I don't know. It's an interesting question.
I don't know. Well, according to this law, you should.
According to this law, you should.
You've had 3 DWIs and...
Well, actually, according to this law, 1.
Right. A single one will do it.
I mean, again, it boils down to the fact that it's all about the federal law. It's a conflict between state law and federal law. And federal law is always going to take precedent. That's why we've got to get it changed. Because if there's ever a meeting of the minds, if there's ever a head-to-head on this subject, guess who wins? The federal law wins.
Federal government.
That's right.
Yep.
If it ends up in the courts, if you've got a court paying attention and making decisions based on the Constitution and the law, states, you're going to lose.
Yeah, well, I hear a lot of pro-gun people say, we don't need any more laws. We have laws. Let's just enforce those laws.
Well, you've heard me say that.
Right. So is this a case of that?
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting question. I'm not sure I know the answer to it. I think this is, an issue. I think, first of all, illustrates that these issues aren't necessarily as simple and as cut and dried as they may seem. But it's an issue upon, which, different rights and different, social protections kind of overlap, kind of are at odds. If you have an opinion on this, give us a comment. Go down to the show description at the bottom of the page. Put in a comment. Let us know what you think. We'd be interested to know. Or send us an email. And Jay, what's that email address again?
VoteProPot@gmail.com.
Or you could post a comment on social media. Where do they go for that, Andrew?
They can check us out at Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just search for VoteProPot.
And we also have a way for you to contact us at our page, VoteProPot.com. That's where you can go to find all kinds of good information, and especially to check out all of our episodes. We're really glad you took the time to check us out today. We hope you've learned something. We hope you were, a little entertained, and most of all, we hope you're moved to some kind of action. We want you to stay involved, stay in touch, and when the time comes for you to cast a ballot, by all means, vote pro-pot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sinsemilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sinsemilla at the beginning of the day. The judge looked down upon me and frowned. He said, "Kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J." I said, "I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sinsemilla at the beginning of the day." Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sinsemilla at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old Sinsemilla at the beginning of the day.